Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And I have another fantastic guest with me today. Her name is Deborah Shouse. She is a writer, speaker, editor, laughter facilitator, and dementia advocate who also has an MBA, but only uses it in emergencies. Her writings have appeared in multiple high-profile publications, and her essays have been included in over 60 chicken soup books. For years, Deborah has written about people living with dementia and their caregivers. She and her life partner, Ron Zoglin, are co-founders of Dementia Friendly Kansas City and Dementia Advocates, Writers, and Speakers. And now, after hundreds of articles, essays, short stories, and dozens of books, Deborah has fulfilled her dream of writing a novel, the true work of her heart, which is titled An Old Woman Walks into a Bar. Deborah, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be talking to you, Cheryl.
It's a real honor and very exciting to talk to anybody who writes a book with a title, An Old Woman Walks into a Bar.
That title is sort of an homage to my father, who was a master punster. And we often had at our breakfast table various people and critters walking into a bar. And one day when I was in the shower thinking about the title of this book, what could be an interesting title, it just popped into my head. There was never a woman walking into a bar. There's never a woman. And so I looked it up on the internet to see if things had changed, and I didn't find anything. And I thought, well, this would be a really fun title for the book.
Well, you were right. So when you were writing the book, or even when you got the idea to write the book, was this on your mind the entire time that, as you were going through your writing career, which is one impressive writing career, did you always have this in the back of your mind that you were going to write a novel and it was going to be about an older woman?
I wouldn't say always. I actually started writing this about 10 years ago. But it was very different when I was writing it. So I wrote it to completion, but it was gloomy. It was, it was a different storyline, some of the same characters. And I thought, I don't want to write something that's gloomy. And I didn't really know what to do about it. And then I got real busy and then I just put it aside. But I thought about Grace, the main character, often. When the pandemic came and all our dementia work stopped, I thought, okay, now it's time for Grace. But I didn't want to write. I wanted to write something that was fun to read and yet had meaning and purpose to it.
Well, congratulations, because you fulfilled your goal beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is a fantastic read. I couldn't put it down. And I have to admit that once I was getting close to the end, I would put it down far more often because I didn't want it to end. And I thought, gee, I wonder if there's like a follow-up book to Grace and her story.
I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm playing with, Grace and Sheila right now with more of their stories. And I don't know if it's going to turn into anything, but I loved writing this book. I loved being with these characters. So I'd like to be with them more. And I'm waiting to see if that's going to work out.
Oh, I hope so, because I'm not really willing to let go yet. I have a real attachment to all of the characters, and Grace in particular, because we're not going to give a whole lot away because I don't want to give the store away, but I do want the listeners to be able to get little tidbits to really pique their curiosity and their interest, so they will pick up the book, buy it, read it, and leave you a 5-star review, because it is a fantastic read. So it starts out with Grace. So describe Grace a little bit of where she is at the very beginning of the book.
Grace is really in a dilemma at the beginning of the book because she has a project that is so dear to her heart, her entire being, and that is a community preschool that she is helping raise money for and develop the ideas through her church. and it'll be open to anybody for free in the community. And when we first meet Grace, she has walked into a bar in the middle of the afternoon because she is so distraught and frustrated because the minister of her church has just told her she's being ousted from leading this project. And she is very upset about that. So that's how we meet Grace. And a lot of the story is her dealing with the ups and downs that we all deal with in life. And I'll tell you a funny anecdote, which is I've been going around to speak at different book clubs, both in person and on Zoom. And one of them I walked into, and the woman said, "How did you know the story of my life? How did you know what was going on with me right now?" I said, so I that was really meaningful to me that somebody had instantly, and she said she read and Grace gave her ideas of what she should do next. So I was really happy with that.
Well, I have to tell you, Grace is very inspiring, and the way she approaches the difficulties she's facing, and a lot of frustration and a lot of, obstacles that many people would just kind of throw up their hands and say, I give up, I can't do this anymore. But Grace is so appropriately named because through all of the problems that she's experiencing, she actually has the grace to be able to help other people who are going through their issues. For example, you mentioned Sheila. And Sheila's a little bit of a train wreck. And Grace has been there for Sheila when Sheila was a teenager, and now she happens to come back into her life. So the fact that she's going through these tumultuous times and still grieving the loss of her husband, she's still able to be that presence in the community, even though it almost feels like they're trying to squash her like a bug sometimes.
Yes. Well said.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, even the younger generation, but especially as we mature, we have our special set of obstacles and losses and challenges as time goes on. And one of the things I think that a lot of people are most afraid of as they mature is becoming irrelevant.
Yes, that is a really good point. One of the reasons I wanted to write about older people, as well as, there's a mixture of ages, is because I thought the older people I know, women, particularly I was interested in writing about, are so fascinating and wise and rich with experience and stories and vibrant. And I feel like our society doesn't capture that often enough. And I wanted to kind of celebrate that. And so that's part of Grace for me, is her vibrancy and her burning desire to live with purpose, which, as you mentioned, is so important to so many of us, regardless of our age.
Mm-hmm. And dare I say, another word that came to mind when you were describing that was resilience. Because if we've made it this far, we've learned a little bit of how to roll with the punches and how to come back from the hits.
Yes, absolutely. And so there's a lot of resilience on many fronts in this book.
Mm-hmm. I get the sense too that Sheila was learning this from Grace indirectly, but she was just through example. And even Grace's son, and we won't go into too much of that because I really want people to read this book because it is absolutely delightful.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Do you mind if I read the back of the book description of it?
No, I'd love it. Thank you.
Okay, so here we go. Nursing a beer in a local bar in the middle of the day, Grace wonders if she has anything left in the tank at age 78. Widowed and retired from teaching, she discovers renewed purpose by spearheading a free community preschool. But when she's ousted from the project by a younger superstar fundraiser with a dark secret, which is a really good secret, by the way, Grace faces another quandary. Should she be true to herself or do whatever it takes to reach her goal? Before she can answer the question, she's off catching a thief, flying cross town on a Harley, turning into a YouTube sensation, and maybe, just maybe, falling in love again. Grace puts a new twist on an ageless joke. Who knows what will happen when an old woman walks into a bar? I just absolutely love that, especially the YouTube sensation part, because I have a real love-hate relationship with YouTube and I struggle with it and putting myself out there. And when I saw what Grace was able to do and, go viral, I thought, well, maybe I need to give it another shot.
Oh, good.
Of course, I don't have the production team that she had, but, I'll figure it out.
Yes.
So let's talk about how in the world did you get so interested and involved with dementia and become an advocate for dementia?
Well, like a lot of people who are in this field, it starts with a personal story.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, my mom had dementia. And since I was a writer, it was just natural for me to document, to try to keep sane and understand what was happening. I pretty much just started documenting what she and myself and my dad and my brother were going through during this period. And those, I was doing a lot of essay writing at that time. So they just gradually morphed into individual essays. And at one point, my critiquing partner said, I think you're writing a book, Deborah. And that it did turn out to be true. And Cheryl, I was so lucky because I got to read my parents some of the essays I was writing about them. My mom was in dementia, living with dementia, but she could still understand. And I received their blessing, which I was so pleased with. So this was called Love in the Land of Dementia, Finding Hope in the Caregiver's Journey. And the book is two things. It's a universal story of what people go through when a loved one has dementia. And it's also our personal story. And it's a hopeful story, because that's what I decided. I was going to stay connected with my mom throughout the journey. And I did that. I had to vary the ways I stayed connected. But so that led myself and my partner, Ron, to volunteer when we would travel, or, we would speak for dementia associations. We would share these stories with people because it's all about hope and tapping into creativity and figuring out the journey of staying connected, because that's what we all want. We want to be with our loved ones. So we have been so lucky to have the experience of giving a performance in Istanbul and giving a performance in, London and Dublin. And we've traveled a lot. And what you learn when you travel is everybody's going through the same emotional experience. One of my favorite comments was when we were in Istanbul and we gave our performance. We had an interpreter. And afterwards, a man came up to me and said, your story is my story. I'm moved every time I think of it, because we're also connected in this community. So that has been a big part of our dementia work, is sharing our stories. And the next book I wrote was Connecting the Land of Dementia. And that's all these interesting activities that anybody can do with the people they care about who are living with dementia, using the arts and creativity. And so through that, we did a lot of workshops for, healthcare professionals and caregivers, different places. So, and then that naturally grew into dementia-friendly Kansas City, which is where I live, and trying to bring more community connection to people. And that's what we're very involved in memory cafes. We had movies and memories. We worked
Mm.
at our new airport that is one of the most dementia-friendly airports in the country.
Wow.
Our team, and and that has been a big part of our lives, doing that work.
Mhm. Well, I just want to say one thing about especially the dementia friendly airport. I would have to say that DIA, I live here in Denver, must be the least dementia friendly airport in the United States. I mean, I couldn't imagine having to help somebody navigate through that experience.
There are groups of people, I mean, England, Australia, they are way ahead of us in that
Mhm.
area, but they helped us. There's, teams of people, both in the UK and in the United States, who are working on that aspect, because people living with dementia travel.
Mhm. Mhm.
And a lot of times, people don't think about that. They travel, and the goal is to make it pleasant for their care partners and for them.
Right, right. And I'm going to put Atlanta on the list too. The Atlanta airport. Oh my goodness. I swear that's even worse than DIA. It's my least favorite airport in the world. Ugh. Okay. Anyway, um, I love the story about the gentleman in Istanbul when he came up and he said that to you. And I really believe that we are all so connected through our life experiences and the importance of community so we can support each other rather than having that feeling of isolation and being alone.
Yeah.
So if anybody who's listening to this episode, if they're experiencing someone going through Alzheimer's or dementia or any kind of difficulty like that, and that they are the primary caregiver, what kind of advice could you give them right now?
Take care of yourself first. That
Mm.
is the hardest advice, but it is well worth it. I know that a lot of us, and I was certainly this way, I can do it. I'm going to be the perfect daughter. And finally, I thought, I need help. And
Right.
when my mom was going through it, our Alzheimer's Association had a wonderful outreach program, and there's many either Alzheimer's associations or other associations in different communities that have those outreach programs, support groups. A lot of it for me was telling my friends what I was going through.
Mm.
So, like, one friend said, can I, how can I help you? Can I come, spend time with you and your mom? And I said, yes. It was wonderful to have somebody spending time with me and my mom. And there were little things, I'm just getting to talk about. One other person said, tell me about your mom, because,
Mhm.
and to talk about my mom's whole life, when I was very focused on, you know, how how am I going to help my dad right now, and how am I going to keep my mom healthy and safe. But to talk about her whole life was fabulous, because then I stopped kind of seeing my mom as a patient, not a
Mhm.
good idea.
Mhm.
And, remembered, okay, this is an amazing full person. And it kind of got me back to how am I going to stay connected? What creative things can I do to do that?
Mhm.
So those are a few pieces of advice. But I think that taking care of yourself, one thing I did is I had a list of 10 quick things that made me happy, and I kept it in my pocket. And anytime I got discouraged or down, I look at my list, and okay, it wasn't the most intellectual list, Cheryl. It had eat dark chocolate on it. Okay,
Oh, that's highly intellectual.
thank you. And, read a paragraph from a book, I mean, go for a walk. It was call a friend, but it was those sort of things, because when you're feeling exhausted or down, you can't think of what makes you happy. And that's
Mhm.
why I have my list. So
Mhm.
those are just a few things to share. And Ron and I do have a YouTube channel. It's called
Oh, bless your heart.
dementiajourney.org. And we have lots of things on that
Mhm.
list.
I think I did see your YouTube channel. when I first, I'm using air quotes here, met you. And I think you actually had one on laughter.
Yes.
And this could be a good segue to talk about that. But before we do, I'm still in Istanbul. I haven't left Istanbul yet. When you talk about your performance, that you and Ron would do your performance, what does your performance consist of?
What we primarily do, we have two kind of different things, three, counting laughter. So we read the stories from Love in the Land of Dementia and then talk about them in the group, because they are, even though, we're in Turkey and we live in Kansas City, the journey is pretty much the same. And so we're talking about, that the stories embedded have like tips. Like at one point, when my mom was asking me the same questions over and again, and I was feeling frustrated, I thought, okay, what is something really important about creativity? The creativity of limitation. The same thing with a different response. So I made it more of something fun for me. If mom asked me the same question, then I would come up with a truthful but different response, and just trying to stay in the space that she was in, so I could be there with her.
That's beautiful the way you said that, because a lot of times when we are in that situation, we forget about the space that they're in and
Yes.
their own experience. And it's so frustrating because we want to be the helper. We want to take care of everything. We want it to be perfect. And why isn't this working? And why are things falling apart? I'm doing everything right. And
Yes.
it's just so frustrating. So to be able to step back and see it from the individual's point of view would be very powerful but difficult.
Yes. And I think another thing I learned is always try to go to where they are rather than trying to pull them to you. So it's like, I want my mom back. But more appropriate is, I want to appreciate my mom just as she is, which is essentially what everybody wants. It's a huge thing we all have in common. And so to just journey to where she is and not try to get her to know what day it is or who I am, or, any of those things we all kind of yearn for. There's lots of joy in just being in a conversation, and it doesn't matter what it's about.
And it doesn't have to be right or wrong or absolute.
Yes.
I worked in an Alzheimer's facility as a physical therapist for a while. And, when one of the patients would say something that was so off the wall, some people would try and correct them. And it's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
If they say something and it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay. And then you move on.
And yeah, exactly. Or tell me more, because you might
Right.
be really interesting about them.
You might learn something interesting, or you might get an idea for another book. You never know.
That's right.
So, okay, you actually indirectly answered my question. The other question I had was about the creativity. So that would be actually your personal creativity or the caregiver's creativity and being able to turn things around as far as giving your mom a different answer.
That is part of that. And there's a whole other, way to look at creativity and the arts. And that is the rational mind. Beyond the rational mind is the creative mind. It lasts longer. It's still there. So most people have seen the impact music has on people who are living with dementia. And there's a fabulous film called Alive Inside, a documentary that shows people deep into dementia responding to their favorite songs. It's remarkable. So music, art, you mentioned laughter. There's so many ways to connect to me. My mom liked to draw, but she wouldn't draw after she started getting deeper into connection, but she would play with colors. So we would just do a line. I'd do a line with a marker, she'd do a line. And that was something, we create something together with that. So there's so many things, once you kind of let go, you were willing to try things, they may or may not work, you try something else. And it's a beautiful spiritual experience.
I love that you brought up music, because as a dancer, I love music. I love all kinds of music. But the previous episode to yours was actually with a licensed arts and music specialized licensed psychotherapist.
Ooh.
So that was a fascinating conversation. So this timing is just absolutely perfect.
Love it.
I know. I love that too. I love it when the world works out that way. And okay, now we did touch on laughter a little bit.
Yes.
And I want you to share with the audience how you got involved in doing laughter and becoming a laughter facilitator. And then I'm wondering if you would be able to share your chorus with us too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a little magic here.
I know you put me in the dark for a moment and I thought, oh my goodness, she's really getting into this. She's setting the stage, right?
Setting the stage. When I was working on my book, Connecting in the Land of Dementia, and to write that book, I interviewed 70 experts in different areas worldwide. And each person I said, who else should I talk to? And one person said, well, you have to talk to Dr. Madan Kataria, who is the founder of Laughter Yoga. So he was in Mumbai, India, and we set up what was Skype back then, pre-Zoom.
Wow.
And so as I'm all prepared, I'm very aware I'm talking to a medical doctor, and I want to act intelligent if I can. And so we start out, and I start to ask him a question. He says, Deborah, before I answer any of your questions, let me ask you, do you know the ha-ha chorus? And I go, no, Dr. Kataria, I don't. And he goes, ha, 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 ha. And if you all will do that, the listeners, just do that, it makes you laugh. And
right.
I was constantly laughing. He said, let's do it together. We did the whole ha ha ha, happy birthday together. And he said, you can do it with any song. And I love that, because how many of us know the tunes? We know half the words. And then we're going, la, la, la. Why not go ha 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 and have even more fun? But I was so inspired by him. He was a medical doctor working in Mumbai, and he kept noticing his life was getting more and more serious. And he thought, I need to have more fun. So he decided to gather some friends in the morning before work, meet at a park, and tell jokes. So first day they met, had a great time. Second day they met, pretty good time. Third day, running out of jokes. So Dr. Kataria and his wife did research on laughter. And what they found is that induced intentional laughter is every bit as good for you as spontaneous laughter. And so they set out to create a program that you would make yourself laugh. And that's what you do in laughter yoga. The yoga part of it, people kind of get nervous, but there's no downward dogs. There's some breathing, and there's gentle gestures. And you can adapt those gestures for any ability. So I was so impressed with his ability to laugh, his joyful take on life. I thought, I want to learn that. And a couple of years later, I found a great facilitator. Now I've forgotten his last name, Robert, but I'll think of it later, in Wisconsin. And my partner, Ron, and I went up there, and we got to be certified laughter yoga facilitators. And we started doing laughter sessions primarily for people who were living with dementia. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Well, as I said before, laughter is the best medicine. And I just wanted to tell you a little story about I went out to lunch on Monday with my editor, and we don't see each other very often. We live, a significant distance away, but I drove into her area and we went to lunch at this restaurant that I absolutely love down there in Castle Rock, Colorado. It's called Scapelli's, and it's also called the Old Stone Church. It was the first Roman Catholic church that was built in that area in 1888. So when the church, kind of like fell apart, whatever, they bought the property and they turned it into an Italian restaurant, but they kept a lot of the interior. So when you walk in, I mean, it's a church with the doors. And as you walk in, there's a stairway going up to the choir loft. And it's just so beautiful, the stained glass windows. And they even have a confessional. So they kept the confessional, and they've got they've got the velvet, thick, beautiful, rich burgundy velvet curtains pulled aside with golden ropes. And when you walk into the confessional, they actually have a table and two chairs, so you can sit and have
Oh,
dinner. People can request, the confessional for either dinner or lunch or whatever. So we were having lunch and we hadn't seen each other in 6 months. And I asked her just this mundane question that said, well, hey, the last time we were here, that was in February or January, and you were kind of like in a weird headspace or something. How are things right now? Well, the floodgates opened and she started telling me, and these were things I had no idea about her life. And they were heavy and they were dark, and she kept going, and I'm listening going, oh my goodness, this is just incredible. And finally she says, I'm so sorry. It was a 3-hour lunch. We were there probably an hour and a half before we even ordered. And she goes, I'm so sorry to tell you all of this. And I said, no, it had to come out because
yes.
it was just a mundane question, and obviously you needed to share it, and it's fine. I love you, you're my friend, and it's okay. And then finally when she says something about me, and I started to share her a dark story that had relates to my second book, but I had like cleaned it up quite a bit, and I had told her stuff that she didn't even know, and she of course edited the book. And so that was pretty heavy too. And so she was like, wow. Well, after we ate, we had another mutual friend who actually lives, well, you know her, Marianne Bailey.
Yes.
Yes, who knew we were having lunch together, and she was jealous, but of course she's halfway across the country. And she says, well, take pictures and send them to me. So I said, okay, Donna, because Donna knows Marianne too. I says, we need to take a picture or a couple of them for Marianne because she really wanted them. So I says, let's do it in the confessional. So we went in the confessional, and our wait person, who was just delightful, she was so patient with us. We got in there and we're just standing, beside each other, and she took a few pictures, and I said, okay, so now let's, like do funny faces like, ooh, or we're shocking each other. So we did a few like that, and the waitress just kept on snapping pictures. So when she was done, we ran back to our table, got our glasses, we could see the pictures. We put them on, and we started laughing. I'm so embarrassed because we made such a ruckus in the restaurant. We were doubled over. We were laughing so hard. And it was like, we're tears running down our face. And it was like our whole mood just lightened up after that, really heavy kind of conversations we were having. And we just floated out the restaurant. And the rest of the day was just so wonderful, because I just remember every time I think of those photos, and I posted them on some on Facebook and one on Instagram, and I just crack up every time I see it.
I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. And it's so
So,
cleansing. I love it. You had all the darkness, you
yes.
needed to purge it, to have catharsis, and then the laughter to light everything up. Oh, it's
And
beautiful.
thank you. And what a healthy way to do that. And I grew up in a family that laughed a lot. And we, even my grandparents on both sides, especially the Slovak side, but we laughed through everything. And my four sisters and I even laughed through, when my parents were sick, end stage leukemia, poker, and 2 funerals. And we also drank a lot that year, but, we got through it.
Yeah. Well, it's a lovely thing to have, and you can do it anytime. You can just do it for yourself. You can be in the kitchen and just say, I'm going to laugh for 30 seconds, set a timer, and just start ha, 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 ha. At some point, you will start actually laughing. They have many laughter groups that are online, and you search for laughter yoga. They're all around the world. Ron and I have been in several. You don't have to speak the language because, you're doing gestures, you're following, and they've been, each group we visited has been very welcoming.
Laughter is a universal language. I better write that down. All right. I still want to stick on that laughter thing because I feel so good. If anybody, I'm going to just suggest this, if anybody is struggling with trying to find a good laugh, if you hear a baby laughing or a very small child, if you can't laugh, then you need to call 911. Because to me, I see that, I hear it, and I just lose it. Just have to laugh.
It's very infectious, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I saw a video, it was a few years back. I think they were twins, these two little babies. They were in diapers and they were able to toddle around in the kitchen, and they were having a conversation of laughter and taking turn. It was just the greatest thing. I'm going to have to look it up.
Yes. Well, we're lucky we have so much of that at our disposal. We can just type in laughing children and we can experience it and set ourselves off laughing too.
Well, where in the world do you get all of your energy from is what I want to know. I mean, just with the writing career, you're a prolific writer, you're still writing, you travel so much. Where do you get that kind of energy?
Well, I'm naturally energetic. I have certainly slowed down some, but I'm very curious. And my partner, Ron, is a great traveler, and he has inspired me a lot. And I think one of the things I love about traveling is it takes you out of your everyday life for a while. You are forced to be flexible in ways that you sometimes don't have to be at home. You are often in new cultures. I mean, even if you're in a new American city, it's still very different from your own city. And so I love that. I love the newness of things. I love getting to connect with people in different places. And then the other part of travel is writing, which is a personal travel where you're, traveling around in your own mind. Or if you're writing nonfiction, you're interviewing people and learning from them. So all that is very energizing for me.
So tell us about your next new adventure, because that's coming up in just a few days, really.
Yes, we're going on a small group tour in Kenya and Tanzania of a photographic safari. So we're going to see a lot of amazing animals.
Have you ever been to Africa?
No, I haven't. It's been on our list for about 25 years, and now it's finally happening.
That is so exciting. And are you going to be taking the photographs?
Well, I think, I've got an iPhone, so it's just an animal trip, and I think various people will have different kinds of cameras. We won't have great pictures. We're just mainly there to have the whole experience of it.
Wow. I really want to hear about it when you come back.
Absolutely.
And the kind of animals that you get to see.
Yes. We should see some big animals, but I pretty much like all animals. So I'm going to be happy with whatever I see.
I'm a little snake phobic.
I don't think we'll be looking for snakes quite so much.
Okay, good. Or they might be looking for you. You never know, right?
Yeah, they may, but
okay. Well, this has been such a fun conversation, Deborah. I don't want it to end. It's almost like, I don't want to say goodbye to Grace and Sheila yet.
Well, they're there in the book waiting for you and for your revisit. And I so appreciate your inviting me to be part of this wonderful podcast and your enthusiasm about Grace. And Sheila and the other characters. That means so much to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for writing it, and thanking you for sending me a copy. And it is, like I said, right here beside me. So I still flip through it and read particular parts of it. Just going to say this one last thing about the book so the audience knows that you have included one of my favorite words in the book at least twice, maybe even 3 times, and that's ninja.
That's right. That was before I met you. And I do want to tell people I have a website, Deborah Shouse Writes. And so, and that's got more information about the book and the dementia books, and welcome hearing from people. If you have questions or want to comment on the books, it'd be great to hear from people.
Absolutely. And of course, that's the link is going to be in the show notes, but why don't you just tell the audience what the link is or how they can find you?
Yeah, it's easy to find me. It's deborahshousewrites.com, and the book is on Amazon. Very easy to find it. And then if you have a group that wants a little Zoom, with me and talk about the book, I love to do that too.
And you'll probably laugh a lot when you do read the book, just so you know. It's a great book. It's funny, it's heartwarming, and it's very poignant and touching at the same time. So, okay, we got the link now to your website. What about your YouTube channel?
It's dementiajourney.org. That's the YouTube channel.
And any other social media?
Instagram. I think it's just Deborah Shouse on Instagram.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Deborah, for being here. I really appreciate it. I have been looking forward to this for so long. I've been so looking forward to it that I actually tried to get it done a month early.
It was great.
That's what happens when you multitask.
I totally understand that. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Cheryl, and appreciate anybody who is listening. It was a lot of fun to talk.
And everybody, thank you for listening. Wasn't she a wonderful guest? I told you you would love this episode. Do go to Deborah's website, check out her books. And I'm telling you, the book, The Old Woman Walks into a Bar, is absolutely, it's riveting. It's just so uplifting. You will laugh through it. And just remember to take care of yourself and get some of that laugh therapy going on. I really love that. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.